Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to bring you this conversation today. I'm talking with the one and only Amy Porterfield. Thank you so much for joining me today, Amy.
Oh, I'm thrilled. This is going to be a fun conversation. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know or you haven't been in the online course business for a while, Amy Porterfield is an online marketing expert. She's the host of the top ranked podcast, Online Marketing Made Easy. Before building a multi-million-dollar digital course business, Amy worked with mega brands, Harley Davidson, Tony Robbins. There she oversaw the content team and collaborated on groundbreaking online marketing campaigns. Through her best-selling courses and popular podcast, Amy's action by action approach proves that even the newest online entrepreneurs can bypass that sense of overwhelm and instead generate exciting momentum as they build a business that they love. I'm so excited to talk to you today. We're talking about using webinars to launch a digital course online. And I wanted to have this conversation with you because that's what I've done through the power of your programs. And can we start with a gushing testimonial? Would that be okay?
Oh my goodness. It's the best way to start. Let me hear it.
Okay, so I started my online business, or no, I started my business in 2017. When I
Okay.
started, I had this very janky in-person course that I was running 4 times a year here in my loft in my home in person. And I was making sales through doing free talks. I was driving around to yoga studios and mom
Wow.
groups and women's groups and doing free talks, which, would take an hour, 90 minutes plus drive time. From there, people would sign up for a strategy session or a sales call. And I would give an hour of my time on an evening or a weekend to talk to these people. And sometimes they would convert and sometimes they wouldn't. And it was 4 launches a year. Felt like I was constantly on this launch roller coaster, right?
Yeah.
And my average sales per launch were about $7,000. And
Okay.
so that's like 28 grand a year. I was using my weekends, using my evenings to teach my classes or do these sales calls. I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old down
Whoa.
with my husband, and
That's a lot.
I worked full time as well. So
Whoa. Yeah. That you had a very full plate and then some.
yeah, I'm excited. It makes me extra excited though, because I think I am a good example of a person who had legit the full plate of things
Yes.
and really needed to transition out of that in order to make this all work. In 2019, I transitioned to online. I got access to a very expensive webinar building program, like a course,
Yeah.
and it didn't help me. I did not experience the benefits, and I'm talking like over 20K
Ooh.
expensive. And in September of 2019, I took Digital Course Academy, your signature program. At the time, I had, I think, 387 people on my email list.
Okay.
Came into DCA. So through your program, I built an incredible opt-in. I built out my webinar funnel.
Nice.
I launched it live in January of 2020 with $22,000 in sales.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
I turned the course then evergreen. Um,
Nice.
so I didn't have to be on that launch roller coaster
Yes.
anymore. So I created that evergreen funnel with a little bit of help from Tarzan K there, as well as my like doula to support me,
Yes.
because we all need that sometimes.
Right.
I turned the funnel on in July of 2020, and in the year that followed, I made over $220,000 in revenue.
What? That is incredible. And you turned it on Evergreen.
Yes.
You are a great example of someone that got to experience more freedom by going from one-on-one in person into a digital course. What a great story.
Yeah.
I need to tell your story more often to people because they tell me like, Amy, I don't think the one-on-one stuff I do could translate into a digital course. They're very apprehensive. So you are a perfect example of doing so. Over $200,000. Are you kidding me? That's incredible.
I can't say enough about it. And, I have to say, because you brought up the transitioning from one to one into this kind of group evergreen model, my clients and course members love it. They love, love, love it. They're so supportive of each other. We have this very intense, compassionate community. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I would never go back. And I don't work evenings and I don't work weekends and I don't have another job. And I work like 24 hours a week, Amy.
Stop it. You work less than I do. What's going on here? That is fantastic.
And it's cool to see like there's opportunity for further growth.
Totally.
But right now I get to choose to drop my kids off at school, pick them up from school, be present with them in those off hours when they're home, right?
Yep. It's life-changing. It really is. It proves that you can create the type of business that you want, whether it be with digital courses or not. As entrepreneurs, we have this opportunity to create the type of life we want through the business that we are building. And you're such a great example of that.
Yes, yes. And I love that you've got this opt-in for the daily habits of like
Yes.
balanced entrepreneurship, it feels like. And the morning questions that you ask yourself, it's so in alignment with the work that I do, because this is the most important place to start with how you want to feel every day, what you want your life to look like, and build the business from there. We don't have to chain ourselves to our at-home desks from 9 to 5.
No, you're right. You get to do what you want to do. And I think the habits, I'm so glad that these are the 6 daily habits I swear by as I was transitioning out of what I didn't want, a 9 to 5 job, into what I did want, to create digital courses. These are those 6 habits that I swear by. And I love that they're so aligned with what you teach and what you do, because it just overall creates better health and wellness for us as entrepreneurs. And so, yeah, these habits literally helped me get to where I am today.
Now, you came out with a secondary podcast in the last year, is that right? And it's more
Yes.
health and wellness focused.
Yeah, it's called Talking Body, and it was just a series. It was a limited series, 12 episodes, where I was talking to women about their bodies and how they feel in their bodies and how they use their bodies for good. And it started with me being self-conscious of my weight all my life since I was a very young little girl, and how that's held me back and what that's done in terms of struggled to be in my own business and show up on video and do all the things. But slowly but surely, I've been learning to accept and love myself more, because I want to do big things in this world. And I don't want to hate myself in the process of doing it. So I wanted to love who I am and the body I'm in now. And so these conversations were incredible, but many of them came back to changing your mindset and changing how you move your body and fuel your body and what that means to you. So it's an important conversation.
I think it's an imperative conversation. And for all of us looking to build in this online space and build in like an entrepreneurial space, you must have these foundations of self-care in place in order to build the confidence to move forward all the way to the end. There's a lot of conversation online right now, and it's unfortunate. It's created this sort of disconnect with the online course industry, because there's a lot of people saying, oh, the completion rates are so low and the people who are running them don't care about you. And, they're creating this new narrative that the mindset doesn't really matter, that it's something to do with the course. And I just need to highlight that through taking care of myself, I was able to see the course through from start to finish. I'm not special in any way. I worked full time. I was going to school. I had the 2 little kids. My husband works out of town all the time, but I was going to bed early and waking up early and setting intentions every day and reviewing my goals daily. Those things have to happen in order for us to keep moving forward, right?
Yes. It's so true. And I think that's why, in part of the course, when I teach people how to create courses, I always say, and this is something I learned along the way, I didn't do this in the beginning, I didn't realize it. But when you create a course and let's say you teach something very specific, one of my students, she teaches how to become a toy creator and a toy maker. That was her expertise at her corporate job. She brought that into her digital course for people that have a great idea for a toy and have no idea how to get started. But when you teach something that specific, you also have to teach the mindset that goes along with applying it. As course creators, we have a responsibility to help shape the mindset around what it takes to get the work done.
Mhm.
But when you do that, when you encourage a shift of a mindset as well as the habits of actually doing the work you teach, there's only so much you can do. Like you just said, then you place it in the hands of your student and they have the responsibility to carry it through. So I think it has to come, it comes from the course creator as well as the student working together to create these healthy habits that will help move you to the finish line. But I love what you said, that you did the work. You're the one who went to bed early enough to wake up early. You're the one who created a schedule around your busy family so that you could get it done. You're one of my favorite types of students to work with because you do the work. So that's awesome to hear.
It really does, I'm never going to just bypass people's trauma and say like, oh, you just need to change your mind. But the perspective shift of, life we need to look at life holistically. If I take care of my body, if I take care of my mind, then it helps me take care of my people and my business. And
Such a great
you
point.
can do everything from that focus. It becomes a lot easier to overcome the obstacles. That's for sure.
Yes, so very true.
So I have a few questions that came from my community, specifically to building out your launch using webinars. Again, most of us came from this place of like learning to do free talks locally, sort of burning the candle at both ends, being available for sales calls, evenings, weekends, etc. My community is mostly built of people who already have a course. That being said, your course really helped me to adapt the program that I had been certified in into my own offering, sort of bringing in the knowledge that I had from other places and from my own life experience. And it built a lot of my confidence as well. So we're launching these programs. Some people have tried webinars, but without having much success. So my first question is, what is your recommendation for people who are in this space, who have launched webinars, maybe one time, maybe multiple times, and just not had the success that they were hoping for?
Ooh, great question. So first I want to say that the reason I love webinars to launch a digital course is that they allow you to be more personal with your audience. They invite people in. I have this motto that I always say to myself before I get on any live webinar, and that is, no matter if they buy or not, they walk away feeling inspired and excited and driven to take action, no matter if they buy or not. And just that saying kind of puts me in focus of why I'm there and how I want to serve. And so when you come from a place of just wanting to serve on your webinar, that comes out in all that you do. So it sets the scene instantly. The other thing about why webinars are so powerful is that, again, you're inviting people in. They see your personality, they see how you teach, they start to understand something in a bigger way, because the goal is once you finish your webinar, and at the end of a webinar, you typically then sell your course, you want to get them to a place that they understand the value, the big picture. They get it now. They're like, I want this, I want to do this. And now your course is how to do it step by step. So the webinar is the what, the course is the how. Now, the reason why webinars are still so very powerful, and the first webinar I did was back, it must have been 2008 when I still was working with Tony Robbins. That was the very first webinar I did. I have been doing webinars for 12 years now, and they're more powerful than they were even back then. And the reason they become more powerful is, one, that way of inviting people in. They can see you on video now. When I first started doing webinars, there wasn't even a video capability. So that's how old I am. So now if you want, you could jump on video. You don't have to, but it's always a good thing to do just a little bit. And also engaging with your audience, asking them questions, fielding their questions, and making sure they feel supported. There's so many ways to teach on a webinar and to sell that I believe it's the strongest way. But here's what I'll say. If you tried a webinar and it hasn't worked, there is a formula. There is a formula for a successful webinar that offers value and converts with integrity. And that's something I teach in my program, Digital Course Academy, because that was something that most people struggle with. Tons of people come to me saying, oh, I've tried a webinar, it doesn't work. And my most popular module I teach is where I go through slide by slide by slide, because there's things you've got to include in a webinar to connect and engage and to convert. So there's a formula, just like with anything else in marketing. And sometimes people just don't know that formula, and that's why their webinars don't work as well.
Absolutely. And I will speak to that module. That was life-changing. That was the thing that made me realize that this $20,000 program that I had taken was missing so many elements, and in a lot of ways had too much. There's a lot of ways that you can overteach.
Yes.
And there was a lot of pushing the pain point, which I like how you said selling with integrity.
Yes.
Because we don't need to use fear tactics. That's bro marketing. We don't need all of that.
Right. Totally agree. Yes. Yes.
But going through that slide by slide by slide, and that's the exact structure that I used. And now I'm like 5 to 7 people enroll in my course every week.
Okay, that's incredible. That's incredible. And I'm so glad that you mentioned Evergreen. It's something that I teach to my students as well. I love having my students start with a live webinar first. I think there's a higher perceived value with live. It's so silly, but it's very human and very true. I'll do a live webinar and then I'll do Evergreen as well. I do both. And on a live webinar, people will say, is this live? Is this live? Is this live? They keep asking. I'm like, it's live. I'm here. It's Tuesday at 12 o'clock or whatever. But when it's Evergreen, I'll see the comments later. Is this live? Is this live? And it's the exact same webinar. It's just one was live and one wasn't. And we even have my team still there for live chat, even when it's Evergreen, but that's just not the same to them. So I tell you this to say, I do want everyone to start with a live webinar. I want you to try a live webinar because one, I think it makes us better marketers. It allows us to see what works and what doesn't work, the questions that are asked in the moment. There's an energy around live that it's a higher perceived value, but you show up in a different way when it's live. You're on, you're like, nimble and changing if you need to, and all of that. It makes you a stronger marketer. And also, I believe that you learn more for the next time you do it. But that doesn't mean you need to stay in live webinars. You're a perfect example. You literally make money while you sleep. Yes. Well, I remember when I first heard that, when I first came on the scene talk about bro marketing, I was like, you all are liars. That sounds like you use salesmen, like used card salesmen. That's not true. But it is very true that you can make money while you sleep with digital courses.
That's right. Sorry, I'm blinding myself. 1 second.
Okay, no problem. Perfect.
Yes, and just to clarify, making money while you sleep, it can make people sound like, oh, you don't even work hard. But no, saving myself the energy of doing the advertising and the launch roller coaster gives me more energy to love on my course community, to give them. I give so much free content and bonuses, and we have so much more fun because I have the energy to give that to my community because I'm not constantly worried about where the next dollar is going to come from.
Yes, fantastic. It's so true. You are a better teacher if you are not pulled too thin in so many different directions. And that's exactly what this idea of Evergreen can do.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And you just spoke to my second question, which is it best to do pre-recorded or live webinar? And we're talking about like launching a digital course for the first time versus subsequent times. And you already kind of spoke to this, and this was my experience with you. And I remember you saying at one point in Digital Course Academy is, if you're going to grow Evergreen, run it live 4, 5, 6, 7 times until you're speaking it so fluently, you're so confident, you've answered all of the questions that tend to come up in those lives, and then you can deliver it in a really cohesive way in an Evergreen format. And then you got to be careful in the Evergreen to be clear that this is Evergreen. You're
Yeah.
watching this, and you can put comments in the chat box and I'll get them in my email and I'll get back to you. We're not pretending that this is live. That was another thing that I learned in this other program was, pretend that it's live when just don't do that. We don't.
It's just not necessary. And people are smart. They're smarter these days than they've ever been before. And I remember I was taught the exact same thing, pretend that it's live. And again, they say that because there's a higher perceived value if it's live. But one, we don't want to be lying in our marketing. And I remember not too long ago, I put out Evergreen, but it was taken from something I had done before. So I'd said, we're live. And then I had to go back and edit it out. I didn't realize it was in there, but it just didn't feel right. Now, you probably take it a little bit farther than I do, where you say like, this is recorded, or if you post a comment, I'll get it in email. I don't say anything. I don't say it's live and I don't say it's Evergreen, but I'm very careful not to make them think that it is live. But I do believe there's different nuances with Evergreen where it's not just one and done. That's another thing. So some people think like, oh, you put it on Evergreen, never think about it before again. That also is not true. You're always like tinkering with it and looking into it. And should I change this or should I change that? It's just that you're not on the hook for these live launches, which I love that experience. Talk about getting more freedom. Like there it is.
Yeah, that's a very good point to make. It's not a one and done at all. But launching live in the beginning, it's
so important.
It's so fun.
It is fun. I love that you said that. It could be, you got to let it be fun. So much of what we do in our marketing and building our businesses, if we're new at it, we're freaked out the whole time and confused. If we've been at it for a while, we feel as though there's certain numbers we need to reach and we don't want to go backwards. So we're always striving forward. And we forget that this actually can be fun. Sometimes when I'm working too much, I'll complain to my husband like, I got to work late tonight because I've got to do X, Y, Z. And he'll often tease, you should talk to your boss about that. You should tell her that you're not going to work. And I forget like, oh, I do call the shots. I forgot I became an entrepreneur, so I don't have to answer to anyone else. So we can let this be fun. I have a good friend, Susie Moore, and she's like, let it be easy. What would we do if we let this be easy? And there's so many times I remind myself of that. We do not need to complicate this to the level we often do. So yeah, something to think about when you launch as well.
Yes. And that just takes me right back to that habits opt-in of yours, is getting your mindset right every day. What can I do to make this fun? And we talk a lot in my programs about, honoring female hormone cycles as well. And as an entrepreneur, you might have the opportunity to, adjust your schedule a little bit. If my energy is not right on a certain day, then it's okay. I'm the boss.
You're the boss.
A different day.
Imagine that. You're the boss.
Okay, so the next question is around sort of the specifics around increasing attendance at webinars, increasing registration at webinars. I know you go into this a lot in your program, but can you give any hints, hot tips for people looking to increase those rates?
Yes. So the first thing is when you want people, again, we're talking about live webinars or even Evergreen, but if you want people to be showing up at the time they said they're going to show up and be present there, you have to encourage it. And so the first thing is, and this is like a simple strategy, but I teach all my students to do it, is to make sure that you're communicating via email with those who sign up for your webinar all the way leading up to 15 minutes before that webinar starts. And it's not just like show up, but it's reminding them what they're going to get out of it, what they're going to learn. If you have any surprises that are coming, kind of tease that some things that they don't even expect are going to be coming on that webinar. So make sure they show up. So really encouraging them to be there when they said they're going to be there and telling them why that's so valuable. I even go to the length, because I believe it, to say that the magic happens when you show up live. Whether I'm there live or not, I want them there live, because that allows them to be more present, engaged, and really paying attention. So we send multiple emails from the minute they sign up for the webinar all the way leading up to the first day. Another thing to increase webinar show up is do not promote it too early. So some of my students want to get way ahead and start promoting their webinar 3 weeks in advance. If someone signs up 3 weeks before your webinar, they're less likely to show up versus if they sign up, let's say a week before. So I often say the sweet spot is 10 to 7 days before your webinar. That's when you want to encourage signups. With Evergreen, we typically are doing like 2 to 3 days before that Evergreen webinar. We actually really shorten it down. But for live webinars where there's going to be a lot of chatter about it online because I'm promoting it a lot, 7 to 10 days. And then the third thing I'll say is that this changed the game for us. So last year, just in 2020, we started doing a show up live bonus. So if you showed up live to my webinars are live. If you showed up live, you instantly got a really valuable freebie. And my audience tends to want to grow their email list. So it was always something about growing an email list. You show up live, and right there at the top of the chat was my free guide that I spent hours and hours creating. It was really good. So we advertised that in all of the materials leading up to the webinar. So that's another thing to get them there. Give them something of value. These things have worked to help us get to 35, 40, 42% show up rate, which is really, really strong.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yes.
That's
So
incredible.
we do a lot of work. And I believe, and I've seen, it's not just a belief, I've seen the data. When somebody shows up live, again, whether you're live or not, when they show up, when they say they're going to show up, they tend to be more likely to buy. And that's because they're in it. They're paying attention. Because when someone says, oh, I'll catch the replay, it's very unlikely they're going to catch that replay, right? We've all done it. We have great intentions, but we don't do it. Don't bank on them catching the replay. Most people don't. Of course, I'll send the replay, but I'm focused. My attention is getting them there live. It's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that idea of a freebie just for those who show up for the webinar. That's fabulous. And I've seen this in the online space in the last year, people like making it really fun and sort of advertising I've seen lots of people advertising their webinar as like coffee and coaching. And they say like, literally, I will buy you Starbucks. And then you open the email and it says, if you come live, I'm giving out like a $50 Starbucks gift card at the end for people who and I just think that's a great way to increase.
Yes. Just incentivize them. I thought you meant everyone got a Starbucks card. I was like, wow, that's impressive. But yeah, so waiting until the end, but they could win a chance. I love that. Yeah. I think that, people are so busy. We are competing with a lot of things online. Incentivizing is a great idea. So yeah, I love it.
Okay, so the next question is that ideal length of a webinar. I know lots of people have been going like shorter with their webinars. Some people have been going way longer with their webinars. Where are you at these days?
So I typically, what I teach my students is anywhere between 60 and 90 minutes. Now, I'll say that, but I have a caveat to it. So 60 minutes allows you to teach for a good 45 minutes. And again, I teach slide by slide. So what are you doing in that 45 minutes? You're talking fast because there's a lot to do in those first 45 minutes. But then I want you at least to be selling for 15 minutes. And selling means talking about the benefits and why this is important and the results they're going to get. Not just like it's 7 videos, 3 PDFs. No, I'm talking about the benefits, not necessarily the features. So we're going to slow it down. One of the biggest mistakes I see made on webinar is someone will teach and then they'll so quickly, like 5 minutes, go through selling and boom, they're done. Like, oh my gosh, the people that are paying attention when you are selling are the people that are thinking about buying from you. So slow down for them because they need to know what the heck they're paying for if they do purchase. And so the ideal length, I can't imagine getting it all in less than 60 minutes. However, I tell my students, some of my star students, take what I teach them and they tweak it and make it their own. And if you think that a 30-minute or a 45-minute webinar is exactly what your audience needs, I will never tell you not to do it. I will always say, let's experiment. Prove me wrong because I would love it. I'd love to teach a different style. And so I'm always open to that, or have my star student teach a different style in our Digital Course Academy community. So if you feel like you want to experiment, go on with your bad self. I will always encourage it, always. Some of my best students are rule breakers where they don't follow everything, but they follow it enough and make it their own, and I celebrate them. So, but I teach for 60 to 90 minutes. Now I'll tend to go like 2 2 hours, but here's the reason. I stay on till the very last question is answered. And the way I see it is somebody who's waiting to get their question answered, they're on the fence. So if I answer their question, whether they jump in or jump out, they feel like they were taken care of. They're going to remember that. So I try to answer as many questions as possible.
Mhm. I like that. I like that longer length. I think that it invites students as well to get used to this format of online learning, especially if they've never taken an
Yes.
online program. You don't want to rush through, because then they might step into your program with this,
So
pre-created
true.
pattern of wanting to rush through.
Such a good point. I totally agree.
Wonderful. Okay. I know we only have 10 minutes left. So one last question. It's a little bit off the topic of launching with webinars, but somebody brought this up in my course community that they wanted to ask you, and I thought it was really interesting. I'd love to hear your feedback on this fine line between sounding teachy and sounding preachy on a webinar. And
Okay.
I feel like this is going to allude back a little bit to that tendency to finger the pain point and things like that we've been taught in other marketing structures.
It's true. So I have a question back just from what you assess from this question. Are they insinuating one is better than the other? Where is teachy good, preachy bad, or where do you think that's coming from?
Oh, that's a good question. And and I feel like maybe Teachy's in the middle, Preachy's on this end, and then on the other end is the person who might be a little bit afraid to pitch their program or make the sale at the end.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's a great point. So it kind of takes me back to why I teach a formula for webinars, because one of the number one things my students are afraid of is sounding too salesy. I'll add even another word into the mix, salesy, when they're on a webinar. And so I always say that if you teach for, let's say, 45 minutes, you have earned the right to tell them about what the next step is. And you are doing them a huge disservice if you show them what's possible and then you don't show them how to get the results that you are promising inside your program. And so I actually believe there needs to be a mix of teachy and a little preachy and a little salesy as well, but only in the sense of we're using those words in like the best possible way. Let me break it down really quick. The teachy part is, yes, you should teach. I have been taught in the past by people way in my early days to hardly teach anything and just share case studies and kind of inspire, but there's not a lot of teaching. I totally disagree with this, especially if you tell them you're going to teach them something, you better teach them something. And so I believe in teaching on a webinar. You don't want to overwhelm them. You want to give them just enough that they feel like it is doable, it's possible, but not like, oh my gosh, I have so much homework, I can't buy from you. I've got 20 things you just told me I need to do. I'm good. Like, so there's a really fine line that you're creating on this webinar between teaching and not overwhelming. But the preachy part, if I was going to spin it in a positive way, you've got to inspire. You've got to show them what's possible. Now, in my early days, I didn't have case studies. I was my own case study. I got results for myself and I taught how I got those results. Then I started to get case studies. If you have case studies, use them, tell their stories, inspire by saying, this is what's possible from other people that didn't think they could do it either. So use those case studies. The preachy part to me is inspiring and encouraging people to really believe that they can do this. That is important on a webinar. If you just teach and you take out the preachy part, you are not going to get them to want to move forward. They won't believe in themselves. So that part is equally important. And then, of course, slowing down and taking the time to tell them what you have for them, because you've got to believe in what you do. I believe in Digital Course Academy so wholeheartedly that I will sell my buns off. I'll say, if you think I'm selling you this course, I am. I want you to get the results that I can get you. I believe in it that much. I've got hundreds of case studies to prove it. So you've got to believe in what you're doing. But if it's funny, I know it wasn't the point of this question, but if we take teachy, preachy, and salesy, yes, you should do all three in the most positive light on a webinar. But it's just making sure, the last thing I'll say to that is, it's got to feel good to you. It's got to feel right. Don't try to be someone you're not. Don't try to all of a sudden be like this master salesman when that's not your thing. Do it in your own style. And that's what's most important.
Absolutely. And I think that touches back to that other end of the spectrum, the person who's, afraid to make the pitch at all, or the person who really just wants to be the friend. That you have to have that space in the webinar too, where you build resonance, or you build this level of
Yes.
relatability. You let the person know, like, I'm you, just maybe a few more steps down the path.
Yep, I get you. I think the most important thing, if someone walks away from my webinar and they didn't buy, I hope they know that I understand where they're at, what they're going through, and really what their desires are. Like, I want them to know I get them. And that's that friend part that I think is so important.
Well, you just do an incredible job of that. I binge listen to all your podcasts every time I'm on a road trip.
I love you for that. Thank you.
It's such a keystone of the growth of my business, and I so just appreciate everything you do, and the way that you deliver things makes growth of business feel manageable and digestible and not overwhelming. So
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being such a star student and for letting other people know about webinars and digital courses, because I do believe it's our way to entrepreneurial freedom. So thanks again.
yeah, you're welcome. Anybody who feels ready to move forward with launching or building out their online course with webinars, make sure that you pop over to thehabit.net/Amy P. And I'm going to have some links there for Amy's incredible free trainings and offers coming up toward her launch of Digital Course Academy in September. I'm just so happy to be a part of this. Thanks again, Amy.
Thank you.